At Pan Am, we would not be going anywhere. It was too foggy.
Yeah, we expected to go to the
back to wherever we had been sitting.
The island has a reputation of very quickly fogging in, and the visibility went from unlimited down to 500 meters, which is about 1,500 feet, and we could just barely see the runway in front of the nose. And at the same time, looking for our taxiway that we were supposed to turn off to the left to clear the active runway and to get off the runway and into position back at the KLM.
Like many small single runway airports, Tenerife was not equipped with ground radar, allowing air traffic controllers to monitor aircraft on the field. But even as the airfield is enveloped by fog, the decision to go ahead with takeoff remains in place.
That particular runway, as most runways are, were very highly painted to give you the center line, and we were barely able to see the runway. And the captain had slowed the airplane down to like 3 knots, just barely moving. We were just beginning to see the curved directional lines to take us off on the Charlie 4, which was the taxiway we were looking for.
Having lost sight of the KLM and the Pan Am jets, the tower now seeks to get verbal confirmation on the relative location of both planes on the runway.
KLM 4805, how many taxiway did you pass?
I think we just passed Charlie 4 now.
Both cockpit crews and the air traffic controllers are now working outside of their comfort zones.
Okay, at the end of the runway, make 180 and report. Ready for ATC clearance.
The KLM reaches the end of the runway and turns 180 degrees. What happens next is an extraordinary exchange between pilot and co-pilot. This is the KLM cockpit conversation taken from the transcripts. Wait a minute. We did not have ATC clearance yet. No, I know that. Go ahead and ask. This exchange suggests that Van Janten had begun to take off until his co-pilot reminds him that he did not have clearance. This is an unusual interaction as Van Janten, the senior officer, was not used to having his judgment questioned in his own cockpit.
Democracy in the cockpit is a very cultural issue. There are some cultures that they are basically very high in power distance, meaning that there is a very strong hierarchy and very steep hierarchy in their society. We cannot expect they have a democracy in the cockpit.
Van Janten waits impatiently for further instructions from ground control.
The KLM 4805 is now ready for takeoff. And we're waiting for our ATC clearance.
It's a routing clearance that air traffic control gives the departing plane that basically tells him how to go from one airport, your departure point, to your destination.
Report, ready for ATC clearance.
But even ATC, or air traffic control clearance, is only a confirmation of the in-flight route to be taken. Clearance to actually take off must be given separately. It is these next few moments of communication between the tower and the two planes that will forever be analyzed.
Roger, sir. We are cleared to the Papa Beacon flight level 90.
We heard the KLM pilot read the clearance back, which is required. As soon as he finished reading the ATC clearance back, he added a comment that was totally unexpected to us.
And we're now at takeoff.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
But we were still taxiing down, assuming that KLM was going to be holding his position as he was directed to do. And that's when I got on the radio and said, but we're still on the runway.
1736, report when runway clear.
Van Janten again begins the takeoff. If there were any further objections in his cockpit, the transcripts do not reveal them. The huge, fully fueled jumbo jet begins to pick up speed. The point of no return has now been passed.
When we first saw the KLM airplane, it wasn't of great concern because we knew he was down there. Then I noticed his landing lights were on, and I saw his lights shaking. And then that's when I said, I think he's moving.
Är sinna till ratan? Ja, sexigt. Är sinna till rat, det är Pan American. Javäl.
I could see his rotating beacon, and he lifted off.
Now, do something. Pull back.
I just could not believe that this airplane was taking off, coming right at us.
On a fog-bound runway, two 747 jumbo jets desperately attempt to escape each other's path, but it's too late.
And I said, he's moving, get off, to the captain. He went to full power on the throttles. We were only going 3 knots, so the airplane was moving very slowly. I think I must have said a very short prayer. I hope he misses us. And that's when I just closed my eyes and ducked.
And then suddenly there was this thud, this tremendous impact. Joan jumped up, ran to her door, looked out the window, and yelled, "Fire on the wing."
The entire top of the fuselage was severed. If you look at the window of the airplane, those windows were gone and the entire top of the airplane was gone. So what I did when I decided to leave and I was yelling at everybody to get out, I stood up on the foot of the cockpit floor that was remaining and reached over and grabbed the back of the captain's seat, Victor Grubb's seat, and then just jumped right over the side.
I continued making my way down through this bits of the fuselage and things, and got about 5 feet or so. There was an edge, a precipice about 5 feet tall, and there was a group of passengers there, maybe 8 or 10 passengers, and I started pushing them, saying, you know, jump, jump. We have to get out of here. And then the debris shifted again, and then everybody, all of us, were just kind of leaping to try to get away from where the debris was shifting, because the engines now were spewing all the metals. They were disintegrating so severely.
No one got out of the airplane past row 33. Reason for that was when KLM hit us, he severed his landing gear into our airplane. Matter of fact, they found his landing gear, the main landing gear, in our wreckage.
After escaping the Pan Am wreck, passenger David Wiley borrowed another survivor's camera to take these 2 extraordinary photos in the immediate aftermath of the crash.
So I went up and I started yelling at them for jump, and they did. Everybody just came straight off and hit in a large group on the ground. One man I noticed grabbed a lady by the ankle and just started running as fast as he could. Turned out later that the lady that was being dragged across the ground was the wife of the man that was pulling her. And when she hit, all of the other people hit on top of her, and broke her back, both arms and both legs.
"1,500 feet further down the runway, what was left of the KLM flight lay smoldering. A full tank of fuel turned the jet into a bonfire of twisted metal. Not one of the 248 people on board survived.
And I think that was our first thought.
That was our first
It was
thought.
a bomb. And we were astonished when someone pointed out that there was another plane down the runway on fire. We had no idea.
In the chaos of the aftermath, rescue workers never made it to the Pan Am site in time to aid injured survivors.
I recall walking around to the passengers who were on the ground, who had been able to evacuate, who were clearly injured, and trying to lean down and reassure them. I'd say, don't worry, the ambulances are coming, help is on the way, the emergency equipment will be here soon. And meanwhile, we never saw any emergency equipment. We never saw ambulances or fire trucks.
What had happened was